Hello, welcome to another Daily Digest video. I'm Merriam, and today I am playing one of my favorite tribes in Magic history. This is a Fairies deck. Not a deck that I played back in its heyday. That's sort of one of my Magic regrets, but I'm going to try it here. And this list has a neat innovation in that it is Esper and not just blue-black. And in fact, is more white than black. Black is only here for Bitter Blossom and Fatal Push in the main. White gives Spell Queller, which obviously plays very well in a Fairies deck, being a flash flyer that adds another element of disruption. We've got Path to Exiles, another white removal, and all the great white sideboard cards. So a lot to like here, and hopefully we can put it to good use. This is a pretty good hand. We've got a lot of cheap disruption. Hopefully we'll find like a Bitter Blossom or a Planeswalker here to take advantage of it, because we should get ahead early as long as these Fatal Pushes are alive. There is a question of whether or not I play a Shock land untapped on turn 1, and I don't think I have to, because if they do something I need to respond to, I can then Shock on turn 2 and Fatal Push plus hold up Spell Snare or something like that. So I'm going to keep it. I'm going to play tapped Watery Grave on turn 1. See if our opponent also keeps their hand. And ooh, maybe a tough one for them, for the Bistro Mathematician. Okay. Is there a character limit to your MTGO handle? That kind of feels like a handle that is a result of a character limit. Mathematician. Okay. Scalding Tarn is not a good sign for our Fatal Pushes being good. But you never know. They could be a burn deck. In which case, me not shocking on turn 1 makes me look very smart. Oh, yeah. Well, they have Goblin Guide, so we're not really getting paid off. Okay, I will play Scalding Tarn and pass the turn. Bitter Blossom not the best here. I know I said I wanted to find something like that, but you know when your opponent's burn, that's kind of rough. I don't really want to get another Watery Grave to push this, so I guess I just let it resolve. And even though, now the question is if my plan here is to get a tapped Watery Grave, so I have multiple black mana for next turn, because I still might want a Bitter Blossom, because I do need to apply pressure, and I have a lot of interaction. I know that sounds maniacal to try to Bitter Blossom a burn deck, but we have a lot of ways to counter burn spells. And if I fetch in response, there's less likelihood that I draw a land, but I don't want to have the trigger resolve. Maybe I get a land, maybe I don't. Fetch and then have a land on top afterwards. I really want to draw a spell on my next turn. So I think I'm going to crack in response to this. And then let it resolve. Okay, Spellstarter Sprite, that's pretty good. I'm going to declare no blocks. There's a chance they have a Lightning Bolt in their hand and the Lightning Bolt move before damage, in which case I'm going to kill the Swift Spear. But if they don't do anything, I'm going to kill the Goblin Guide to ensure, yeah, they do have a Bolt. So I'm going to Fatal Push the Swift Spear now so I get another Goblin Guide trigger. Yeah, let's Fatal Push this one. And now I'm going to go to 12. Okay. I know it sounds kind of nutty, but I'm going to play this Bitter Blossom. You do need, it's still a sort of combo deck. You need to clock burn. See what I get. A Path to Exile, that's fine. push that. Let's see what they have. 5 cards in hand. Ugh. Well, that is not what I wanted to see. Is another creature there. I'm not going to shock. If they attack, I'm going to try to block with Mutavault. I really didn't want them to draw a 3rd land. I was going to block with Mutavault because I couldn't Searing Blaze. Still gonna go for it. If I have to Spell Snare the Searing Blaze, so be it. It'll be the same as pathing and taking 2 damage. Ooh. Ooh. They're letting me block. Maybe they missed this Mutavault here? Surely they wouldn't let me block and then burn the Mutavault. If they did that, I would probably just let the Mutavault die. Oh, wow. Well, that's great. Now, hopefully I can... If I can Spell Snare a 2-drop here... Oh, and they're Searing Blazing that. Wow. Well, this went as well as humanly possible. They suspend a Rift Bolt. Please draw a land here. Another path. Okay. Well, I'm going to Spellstutter Sprite this Rift Bolt. Because I can. Even if they have a removal spell for 1 fairy, Bitter Blossom does count as another fairy, so this I'll still have 3. That is something to be wary of. Even if it was Searing Blaze, if they got to Searing Blaze 1 and let their Rift Bolt resolve, even if the Searing Blaze only deals 1, that would have been a nice play for them. And this is a pretty big turn. They've got to do a lot with this. Yeah, Boros Charm definitely counts. Okay, but no other 1-mana spell? That's good. So now I'm at 6. I think I'm going to need to counter every burn spell, though. So I'm attacking for 3. That gets them to 12. I think I can kill them in 2 turns with this snap, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to hold it up. This is definitely getting mana leaked. And they don't have another 1-mana spell. Because they didn't play one last turn and they just played a land. I can't mana leak a 1-mana. I'm thinking about pathing a creature here. And I don't think that does anything because mana leak only stops a 2-mana spell. And I can snap Spell Snare if that's the case. Okay. And now I can Snap Leak anyway. I'm hoping they just draw creatures because I have all these extra paths. So this gets them to 8. So I guess I'm 1 short with the snap. So I still need 2 more turns. So this is going to be tough because I can't beat any burn spell for 2 turns. I drew a land. Okay. Well, I think they have another land in their hand. And if that's the case and they draw a 2-mana burn spell or a creature, I can beat them. I guess I cast Serum Visions because it does not affect my ability to snap a 2-mana burn spell. But I can't. I guess I can draw a Spellstutter Sprite that could cover anything. My worry is that they have a 2-mana burn spell in their hand, and they couldn't double spell on either of the last turns because they drew Vantage as land 4. So if they have a 2-mana burn spell in their hand, and I snap counter it, and they draw a creature, but if they draw a creature, I have blockers. So yes, I do believe it is best for me to Visions. Okay. Yeah, I just beat a creature by blocking it. I could definitely see them having a 2-mana. Oh, yes. Spellcaller will also cover any 1-mana burn spell. So let's bottom, and I think we have them. I think our Bitter Blossom dealing us, 5 damage and up to 6 on our next turn. It's going to get there. Oh, no, they have Helix. So is there any difference between Queller and Snapcaster? I guess if they have like a creature removal spell that wouldn't kill me from 2 life, which I don't think exists, but is a potential thing, then Queller is worse. So let's snap our Spell Snare. And we're in the classic situation against Burned. Do they draw a burn spell, or do they draw a creature or a land? They've gone through 3 creatures, and they've gone through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 lands. So if they're a 20 land version and 12 creatures, maybe 13 with the Lavamancer, so that's like 10 creatures and 13 lands. Yeah, we're pretty close to a coin flip here. So they should not crack this fetch, by the way, because it cuts them off of Searing Blaze as an out, and that's worth having more outs is worth way more than taking a land out of your deck. If I was at exactly 1, then sure, crack the Arid Mesa. But okay, big sweats. Oh no, they drew Searing Blaze. Our opponent is so smart. Oh, they gave us the sweat. Okay, they bricked. Whew. I'm pretty sure Bitter Blossom is great there. I guess maybe not. Like, if I just don't play Bitter Blossom ever, then I get to like counter the Eidolon and probably just end up killing them with these creatures. So maybe playing Bitter Blossom was actually wrong. Because had I not played the Bitter Blossom, I would be at 8 right now. Granted, they would be at a very high life total, but they'd have no hand. I would have effectively dealt with everything. I'd still have this Spell Queller, and probably still have the Mutavault. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, because I wouldn't have had the Mana Leak. So I think I'd be at 5, because a Burn Spell probably would have resolved. I don't know. All I know is I like clocking my opponent, even if they're Burn, and we won, so guess. Well, all these cards seem great, countering Burn Spells and gaining life. So I think that'll be my play. Is Engineered Explosives a reasonable card to have? Probably not. Normally I like to have kind of a sweeper if they have a creature-heavy draw, but we have 6 1-mana removal spells, which is a lot. So I don't anticipate getting caught off guard by those. Bringing in a couple more creatures, I think we'll just cut these Bitter Blossoms, because they will often be a liability. You'd think in a fast matchup I'd cut maybe a Planeswalker, but I actually like Jace a lot because it's a win condition that doesn't put a creature on the battlefield. You just +2 really aggressively and control their draw steps, give them extra lands, and just counterspell them. Granted, some of our counterspells are creatures, so turning off Searing Blaze is going to be hard, but I still like Jace. I think I'll cut the Teferi. That does not seem like a card I'll ever get to really use. And now our deck looks pretty lean. 6 1-mana removal spells, a bunch of interaction, a bunch of counter spells, even if some of those counter spells are creatures, and a couple Jaces. So, yeah, I'm liking this post-board configuration. Might bring in the EE for Game 3. We'll see. But that was a pretty clean sideboard. Cutting our Bitter Blossoms in, what was it, Teferi. One thing I'll have to watch out for is dealing myself damage with the mana base. This version of the deck can definitely do that. Blue-Black Fairies is usually pretty good at not taking damage. It plays a lot of different 2 lands. Darksec Shores, Creeping Tar Pit, that Fairyland, Secluded Glen. This hand is pretty good at not dealing itself damage. It is vulnerable to a turn 1 creature without a removal spell here. I guess I could like flash in a Snapcaster against a Goblin Guide and hope that works. But that's about it. But it's a pretty reasonable hand. and they mulligan to 6, so I think this is a keep. What I like about this hand is that it should clock our opponent pretty well. And they scry to the bottom after keeping 6, and we'll just hope for no Goblin Guide or Swift Spear. And I'd actually probably prefer Goblin Guide. Okay, suspend Rift Bolt, and now we did drew a removal spell anyway, so that'll cover an Eidolon here. Definitely going to get a tapped Watery Grave now. Let's take this 3. Not only is it nice to see your opponent start on a burn spell and not a creature most of the time, because the creature has a potential to deal a lot of damage, but when they mulligan especially, it's so hard here to just add to 20, unless they really stop at 2 or maybe 3 lands. Well, I think I'm just going... I could shock so that I could hold up Spell Stutter next turn, but I should be able to Spell Stutter something at some point, especially with Mutavault, so I can Spell Stutter at 2. So I'm just going to save the 2 damage here. And I guess at this point I can play this other fetch and get a second Hallowed Fountain in case I need that. Maybe I'm supposed to play the Plains there, because if they draw a 1-mana, if they have a 1-mana creature now, I could have pathed 2, but they didn't. Wisely attacked first. So they play 3rd land here. If they play 4th land, it's going to be real hard for them to add to 16 at this point, because I've dealt myself 2 and the Eidolon will deal me 2. But not completely unheard of. And they just Boros Charm me. It's a good start. And this will get second, or Hallowed Fountain. And I'm going to play Mutavault here. Ooh, that's a nice one. Because if they play a spell I want to counter with Spell Stutter, especially a 2-mana spell like another Eidolon would be the big example, then I can activate Mutavault and play Spell Stutter for 2. I'm a little worried about a Searing Blaze here. I'm not sure how much I can play around it. If I get to 5 mana, then click plus Spell Stutter Sprite protects it, but that's giving them so much time, and they didn't make land 4. So I think I just kind of have to go for it. It's kind of frustrating to do that. But I have a lot of counter spells to help deal with the rest of what they have, so yeah, I'm just going to go for it. I think if they do Searing Blaze, I'm just going to tap out for the Archmage and hope to not die. I guess we'll see their hand and figure out what's going on. Okay. Interesting. So they brought in Destructive Revelry, which is a little curious. I guess they wanted to deal with Bitter Blossom, but I boarded that card out. So they also didn't Helix my click in response, which tells me they don't want to click it. So I think I'm just going to take the Boros Charm, because it just deals me the most damage. So yeah, let's just take the Boros Charm. They have Revelry, Helix. If they Helix my click, I'm pretty happy about that. I have more things to clock them and counter a bunch of threats, so I'm fine making that trade. And they do. Okay. Interesting that, like, if they were going to do that, they should just do it with the trigger on the stack and not give them the option to take it. But, you know, who am I to judge? So now they have Revelry X. And I'm just going to take the time here to tap out. Again, if they use a removal spell, it'll come back. Again, that's just what it's doing anyway. If they draw a 1-mana and a 2-mana burn spell to send at my face and get me to 2, yeah, that's a little frustrating. That's best possible for them. But that still leaves me with a bunch of ways to counter their next million draws. So, if they drew 1 land, and now this game is pretty easy from here. I think I'm going to run out the Snapcaster as an Ambush Viper just to pressure them, especially when I get them to a multiple 4 from this attack. Yeah, the best thing for them now is to try to build up a big hand. That's fun. That all answered with Path to Exile. And I was still going to snap here because, actually, oh, and I can just snap Verdict, sorry. Now I can even get value out of it. So that's awesome. That does take me off of Spell Snare, but whatever. This leaves my path for another creature, so I don't have to use a counterspell on it. I'm fine with one burn spell resolving. If it's a Searing Blaze, that's, again, worst case scenario. But I think I'm still pretty far ahead in that case. Looks like they did find something. Helix or Boros Charm? Helix. And that is going upstairs. That's not a bad one because it gives them some life to play with. So, but now I can afford the mana-wise to activate this Mutavault and get in for 6. I know they have a Revelry. This is not an artifact, so just attack. And you see how hard it is for them to just add to 20. They drew 4. They mulliganed and they drew 4 lands, and they had one card that got like traded with for no value, and one dead card in their hand. That's just not a card they should bring in. Yeah, let's just pressure them. They can't have more than one good spell here. Don't know who's blowing up my phone. And we can stop 2 spells between Glenelendra, Spell Stutter, and Spell Snare. Just try to kill them in 2 turns from here. Guess I could have gotten... No, even if I got really aggressive and activated both Mutavaults that turn, that only gets them to 1. Yeah, there's a Swift Spear that I can just path. Yeah. Like the fact that they were a little slow out of the gates because of the Rift Bolt gave me time to set up a clock, so now I get to sit back and trade effectively for their cards. 3 mana spell. This Exquisite Firecraft? Ooh. Well, that's that means they have an out. I can't beat a second one of those. Usually there's 2 or 3 if they have them. I guess no, I can with a Spell Queller. Okay, so I'm definitely going to Serum Visions here for a Spell Queller because I have them dead otherwise and just short of getting it. So well, we'll definitely top it, but it's not going to be relevant. And yeah, just play this Colonnade, activate the Mutavault. The Spell Stutter covers anything else they can draw, or the Glenelendra. If they have some other 3-mana spell like a Molten Rain, the Glenelendra covers. Okay, no Firecraft, please. That would be a rough way to lose this game. Okay. Whew. Thought I was in complete control. Firecraft definitely made me sweat again. 2 pretty close games. I guess they left me at 2 there. So it really killed them that they had that Revelry actually, because I think they had a window to unload that card if something that goes upstairs. I think I would have gotten got by the Firecraft because I played a little aggressively and let them get that Helix in to clock them. So the Firecraft, I think, would have gotten me if they just hadn't brought in Revelry. And that, I mean, I know Revelry does deal them damage if it goes off, but I think you've got to envision that the Fairies deck has a plan to bring out Bitter Blossom, which is often a liability in the matchup. And I think it might have even been a liability in the game I played it, even though it looked kind of good, if you just went and sort of redid the game in your head. And I'm not sure what else they're looking to kill with that card, so... Burn is not a deck where you can afford to sideboard poorly, because as a critical mass deck, if you bring in a card from your sideboard and it ends up not being good, that hurts every other card in your deck. Because if you're not able to add to 20, you lose, and it's like you added to 0. So, not a deck that you'd want to do a lot of sideboarding in, and it's a deck where, I know when I played it, I was loath to, 1, put cards in my sideboard that didn't deal my opponent damage, and 2, if I have those cards in my deck, to bring them in. You know, a lot of burn decks that pass in their sideboard that bring them in against almost any creature deck. I remember I wasn't even bringing them in against Affinity and other things. People disagreed, but you know that's how I played my burn deck. I played it upstairs. So opponent ends up with 1 dead card, and I win the game at 2 life. So that's kind of how it works. The mulligan also hurt, obviously. 1 more burn spell. Although a guy can counter a lot of burn spells, and if there's the possibility of them double spelling, hold up more mana and play a little bit slower there. So we definitely had regular burn spells covered for days with. Although I guess Mana Leak got bad there by the end because of the path, but between Spell Stutter and Galettalendro, we had burn spells pretty well covered. So either way, hope you enjoyed watching that one, and you can come back and see me on Friday. Bye.